city of whispers and screams. Imagine a city. A city that was once a vibrant tapestry of cultures, a jewel of the Balkans, the proud host of the Winter Olympics. A city whose streets echoed with laughter, the clatter of trams, and the melodies of 1,000 cafes. Now imagine that same city holding its breath. This is Sarajevo in 1992. The laughter has been replaced by the hiss of sniper bullets. The music of the cafes has been drowned out by the thunder of mortar shells. The city is no longer a tapestry. It is a cage, a concrete labyrinth of fear. Every window is a potential vantage point for an unseen enemy. Every open square is a killing field. The people, once citizens, are now survivors, their lives reduced to a desperate calculus of risk. When is it safe to fetch water? Which street offers the slightest chance of cover? They have become experts in the architecture of fear, learning the sound of an incoming shell, the chilling silence that precedes it. Life is lived in whispers, in hurried dashes between crumbling buildings. But even in the quietest moments, the city is not silent. It screams. It screams with the memory of lost loved ones, with the pain of the wounded, and with the silent agony of a future stolen. What happens to the soul of a city when its music is replaced by the cacophony of war? It waits, it endures, and it searches for a reason to hope. The red stain on the pavement. Hope is a fragile thing in a city under siege. It is found in small victories. A day without a death in the neighborhood, a loaf of bread secured, a moment of shared warmth with family in a cold basement. On May 27, 1992, a group of Sarajevans were seeking just that, a simple loaf of bread. They lined up in a queue, a mundane act of civilization, a quiet insistence on normalcy in a world gone mad. They were mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. They were hungry, and they were exposed. Without warning, a mortar shell fell from the sky. The explosion was vicious, indiscriminate. It tore through the queue, turning a scene of quiet desperation into a canvas of unimaginable horror. When the smoke cleared, the street was littered with the dead and dying. 22 people who had woken up that morning with the simple hope of finding food lay silent on the pavement. The bread they sought was now soaked in their blood. The ground bore a deep red stain, a wound on the city's heart. In the face of such senseless brutality, what can one person do? Can a single act of defiance truly matter against the machinery of war? For most, the answer is to hide, to grieve, to survive. But for one man, the answer was different. His answer would be found not in a weapon of steel, but in one of wood and string, an instrument of defiance. His name was Vedran Smajlović. Before the war, he was the principal cellist of the Sarajevo Opera, a man whose life was dedicated to beauty and harmony. The day after the massacre, he watched from his window as the city tried to wash the blood from the street. He saw the crater, the ghost of the explosion, and he made a decision. He did not pick up a rifle. He did not shout in anger. He did what he had always done. He picked up his cello. He put on his formal concert attire, a black tuxedo, the uniform of his art. He walked out of his building carrying his cello and a simple plastic chair. He walked past the shocked faces of his neighbors, past the rubble and shattered glass, and went directly to the center of the crater, the very spot where 22 souls had been extinguished. He sat down, placed his cello between his knees, and began to play. The music that flowed from his instrument was Albinoni's Adagio in G minor, a piece of profound sorrow and transcendent beauty. In the middle of a war zone, surrounded by the threat of death, one man played a lament. It was an act of breathtaking courage, a quiet, resonant roar against the silence of death, the 22-day requiem. This was not a singular act. The next day at the same time, Smajlović returned, and the day after that. For 22 consecutive days, he sat in the crater and played his lament, one day for each life that was stolen. He became a fixture in the war-torn landscape, a solitary figure in black, creating soul-stirring beauty amidst relentless destruction. He never knew if the next note he played would be his last, if a sniper's bullet or another mortar shell would silence his music forever. People began to watch. They didn't gather in the open. That was suicide. But they listened from behind shattered windows, from the darkness of doorways, from the relative safety of scarred alleyways. His daily performance became a ritual of remembrance, a shared moment of grief and defiance. It was a promise that the victims would not be forgotten, that their humanity would be honored. Was this madness? Or was it the most sane response possible to an insane world? By playing for the dead, was he not, in fact, playing for the living, reminding them of a world that once was and could be again? His music became a pulse for a city whose heart was broken but still beating, the echoes of a cello. The story of the cellist of Sarajevo did not stay within the confines of the city. It seeped through the blockade, carried by the few brave journalists who dared to report from the siege. The image of Vedran Smajlović, his formal attire stained with dust, his face a mask of intense concentration, his cello singing its sorrowful song, became a global symbol of artistic resistance. It was a story so powerful because it was so simple. One man, armed only with his principles and his art, standing against the overwhelming force of hatred. His music did not stop the bullets. It did not end the siege. The war would rage on for years to come, claiming thousands more lives. But it did something arguably just as important. It preserved a piece of a city's soul. It reminded the people of Sarajevo and the world watching in horror that even when everything is taken away, your home, your safety, your loved ones, your dignity, and your humanity cannot be extinguished unless you allow it. Smajlović's performance was an assertion that culture is not a luxury, but a necessity. It is the language we use to make sense of the senseless, to find beauty in the rubble, and to insist against all odds that we are still human. It left the world with a question that echoes to this day. In the darkest of times, what will be the instrument of your resistance? If this true story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Your support will boost our morale. Don't forget that. Thank you. Goodbye.